Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about highly sensitive people who have trauma. I like to refer to us as the unhealed empath. Watch this video. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, please click the little subscribe button and the bell to receive notifications when I release new videos. And if you've been with me for a while, thank you so much and welcome back. For those of you who are new, I work as a spiritual coach. I have my degree in spiritual psychology. And one of the things I find so interesting in this work, what is spiritual psychology, first of all? It's a deep dive. It's not traditional therapy. We studied all types of therapy. We studied all types of healing. I also went out on my own and have my master's in Reiki. And I am a Reiki master, I should say. I don't have my master's in Reiki. You can't do that. But I got the certifications for that, as well as holistic health coaching, as well as yoga teacher practitioner, and so many other things. So I put all of the things that I've studied over the last couple decades together into my coaching practice. One of the things that annoys me about traditional therapy, psychiatry, is yes, it's a fantastic tool to understand your symptoms and put a name to it. But oftentimes in this society, that name becomes a stigma and it becomes an identification for yourself that's negative. And you walk around with an uncertain identity or a negative identity. That happened to me when I was 7 years old, diagnosed with attention deficit. And back then they thought it was a deficit, a disorder. Now we understand more and more that it is neurodivergent. And neurodivergent means you think differently. And thank God for thinking differently, because I can see these, let's say, traditional issues a little bit differently. And one of them I want to share with you today is I have a lot of clients who are highly sensitive and have had trauma. Let me say something. How could you not have trauma being born highly sensitive in a system that does not acknowledge, validate, or understand that? You guys may have seen my fairly new podcast called Misunderstood, Guiding Highly Sensitive People Through an Emotional Dark Age. I help guide people through things I wish I had guidance for when I was a kid and a teen and a young adult. And so this is the thing. So many people that come to me want to be seen and heard in their experience. We want nothing more than to have emotional validation. We have to learn how to emotionally validate ourselves because we're not getting it from out there. We were born into a world that tried to invalidate us, so we're not going to get the validation from a place that took it away. So I learned how to emotionally validate. This is what I train in my courses and in my coaching, is how to understand your emotions, as to not identify with them, as to not act on behalf of them, but to understand where they came from. And when you do that deep dive into emotional validation work, you start to see that everything you ever felt is valid, even if it was gaslit by the authorities that be, even if you grew up in a narcissistic or toxic or just dysfunctional, emotionally immature home, you're still valid. Everything you feel is valid. So this is what makes people not trust themselves anymore, is they start to feel like their feelings are wrong because it didn't get them love. It got them rejection. It didn't get them the grades in school. It didn't get them this achievement. It didn't get them this measure, this statistical dumb stuff. And one of those examples was me. In school, I was not getting straight A's. I would get A's and like D's. And they're like, what's going on with her, right? Well, people with attention deficit and a lot of people who have neurodivergent are born pretty clear on what they're interested in and not. And the system is not something most of us are going to be interested in because we think differently, we process differently. In the book that I'm putting out this year, I talk about the different types of learning and processing. And in school, there's only one. And so a lot of kids who are labeled with learning disabilities or learning differences, instead of highlighting what was gifted in them, it was more of a focus on what's wrong and what's not good enough. And that created a lot of perfectionists in the highly sensitive community. That created a lot of people pleasing in the highly sensitive community. And it also, a lot of these issues with highly sensitive people create personality disorders. because you're in a system or a family system that is actually disordered, and you're the one that's sensitive, saying what's wrong, expressing what's wrong, and you get labeled and shamed for the expression of the thing they're in denial of. So my story, as you know, was in the school system, but also it was home because my mom was a school teacher. So my attunement was never there. There was no attunement to my main caretaker and no attunement to my school system. But what I found interesting is I was so good at certain things, and I was so good, like so easy to connect with friends, that there were so many incongruencies. And what I hate about this system, well, it's changing now, thank God. And I feel so much better about this and so free in this new mirror. But what I hated about it growing up is that my natural way of being was told I was wrong. So what happens when you're highly sensitive and your emotions are constantly gaslit, you're constantly told you're wrong because you're doing it differently than the majority, or than you need to do it to validate your parent, whatever it is. A lot of people tend to have these personality disorders. I was not one of these people, but I have many clients who are afraid they have this. And before, I tell them, go to a psychiatrist and get the diagnosis if you want. But what I'm here to do is help you validate your emotions, to understand yourself better, to have a better self-concept, to re-engage with your true authentic self. And so one of the disorders I see people worrying about a lot who are really highly sensitive with some significant trauma is borderline personality disorder. What I've learned in my 12, 13 years of coaching so many highly sensitive people who are traumatized, there are a lot of overlaps with symptoms of abandonment. You had to abandon yourself. You were abandoned for naturally being you. One of the main symptoms with borderline is a massive abandonment wound. And what I also see with it is coping mechanisms to deal with deep, extreme pain, extreme emotions. Highly sensitive people have extreme emotions in the positive and in the negative. We feel life differently. So people who come to me who think they might be that, I said, well, go check it out if you want. If you're not suicidal, I can work with you. And most people that think they are this aren't suicidal. Some people I'm sure are, but the ones who aren't come to me, and I can see a lot of their symptoms of potential self-harm. It's more like self-sabotage is the way that it shows up, is because they've internalized the frustration because they don't have an outlet, because people are gaslighting and bypassing their emotions. So I'm not here as a doctor, because I'm not a doctor telling you that you do or don't have a diagnosis. I'm saying go check it out if you want to. I'm just telling you how to understand some of your symptoms in case you're someone who just has symptoms but not a diagnosis. So if you just have these symptoms that are extreme, I want you to really think about, am I highly sensitive and have I had trauma? Doing a lot of the trauma healing, which is what I do in my sessions, and really understanding your true identity from the source that created you rather than the society that broke you down, is a very big level of healing and layer. And if things still persist, you go get the help you need, you go do what you need, right? But I'm here just to remind you that a lot of people have a negative self-view that they don't need to have because of the trauma you've been through with being misunderstood. So yeah, if you guys are just starting this journey, or if you've been watching me for a while and you want to know how to start, because people keep DMing me on Instagram and I don't have the time to get back to everyone, so I'll just say it out loud here. The main course that I created for your journey to start in this way of really discovering the true self and healing a lot of this shame is called Emotional Rehab. It's kind of the perfect name because that's what we're doing here. We are rehabilitating your natural emotional state back to loving and owning what you are, not as disordered or wrong or, anything, just hurt. You have been hurt. What's wrong with you is not that there's something wrong with you. What's wrong with you is that something wrong happened to you, and now you have symptoms that you had to create to cope with an environment that didn't know how to mirror you or understand you. So I just want to leave you with that today. I'd love to hear any of your comments. Please share this with anyone you think it could help. I'm going to be doing a ton of videos about this and reels because I just have so much to say. And also I think this year, it just feels like getting right to the core. Like, let's just talk about it. I have skimmed around talking about personality disorders or other disorders because I am not a doctor and I am not a licensed therapist. If I was, I couldn't work internationally. So I am a coach. So what I say is these are my experiences, and take it in if it works for you. And if it's a serious condition, go get the serious help that you think you need. But this is for you to feel a little bit more seen, a little bit more heard, a lot more understood. So again, if you haven't checked out my Misunderstood podcast, please do. Please send me any comments you have on this topic. Please stay tuned on Instagram because I will be doing a lot about this. And I love you guys so much. And I will see you very soon.